Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Mile a Minute Movie Talk with your host, Dylan, aka Diligent Picks over here, and my fellow host, Lucas of Ligure
Hello,
Films.
hello, Ligure Films. Here I am.
How are you doing, Lucas?
I'm doing good. Long time no see on here, but not in person, for we have seen each other multiple times every week watching movies.
I meant to look up before we started this when the last podcast episode actually was, and
I
to
think it was
verify,
September.
has it really
Um,
been that long? 3 months.
I'm gonna
Yep.
tell you right now.
Episode 10, the Barbenheimer.
Oh wow, that was a long time ago. That's August. Yeah, August
Yeah.
15th. So welcome back.
We are still here. We are still
Yes,
watching lots of movies, if not more than we watched.
definitely more.
Yeah, if not the most we've watched of the year
Yeah,
since
yeah.
then.
We had the big October. I think September we did watch a lot, but it's definitely our big thing is going to be going through October and November. You know, the horror theme and all that, and kind of encapsulating what we did then.
We wanted,
Instead
yeah,
of talking to you guys.
yeah, we wanted to do kind of a fun episode for you guys. If some of my viewers recall, past years I've done kind of a um, ranking in a way of like all the films I watched in October. I like to do, which is probably, this might actually have been the last year I will be doing it, but I've done a 31 movies for 31 days in the month of October to celebrate Halloween, my birthday, and yeah, just a fun, let's say, challenge.
Yeah.
Because it really does become a challenge.
What'd you turn
Um,
this year? Was it 32 too?
exactly. That's
So
one
now you're
reason
over
why.
31. I think that's a great way to end it.
Exactly. That was my thoughts exactly. It was time. So, yeah, we thought we'd go through all the movies we both watched, and some of them there's some overlap here. We watched a
Yes,
few of
there's a
these
lot.
together, and yeah, so we'll talk about all of them, touch on these briefly, give you guys some recommendations, and some maybe a couple things to avoid.
Yeah.
But yeah, who shall we? Lucas, lead us off. What did you watch
Uh,
first?
so beginning of October, first movie I watched, uh, Beyond Dream's Door. Very weird, kind of like a nowhere movie, or not a nowhere movie, but nobody in it that you know of, nobody, no publicity. It's on Tubi, and I was recommended this by an internet mutual of mine. He has a TikTok and other things. His name is Fart Coomer. Very weird name. He came up on my TikTok one day, and I've like talked to him a couple times, and we're following each other on Instagram now. He watches a lot of like low budget trash horror films, and that's kind of his like genre that he goes into. And he finds like some gems, and this is one of them. Just a really weird film. Very like, and it's this guy who's kind of like struggling with are his like dreams his reality, and like what's his real reality, and what's this thing that's coming after him. It was just really weird, but it was like super expansive for a like no budget low budget film, and I just had like super a lot of fun with it. It very much encapsulates a lot of the campy vibes of that era. The monster isn't great looking, but it doesn't really have a reveal till the end, so that kind of really works in its favor. But it does really well for what it is, and the gore is actually pretty good for what its budget was. So I was like just impressed with it. It was a pretty interesting film. But yeah, if you like weird, uh, forgotten films, horror films from the 80s and 90s, this is like a definitely one. Beyond the Dream's Door. Um, it's funny. I always got the cover mixed up with this other movie, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head, so I'm not even gonna say that. But yeah, it was like another. It was a Quantum Leap, and the guy kind of looks like the dude from Quantum Leap on the cover, and I always thought it was a Quantum Leap like TV movie, but no, it's his own thing. It's great. But yeah, it's pretty fun.
Interesting. Yeah, that's one I haven't seen. But
Yeah.
the way you described it, it does sound like a fun one I would likely enjoy with some friends.
Mhm.
Another good one that I would say maybe a step above in terms of not quite B level, but a little more mainstream would be Shaun of the Dead, a good old
Mm,
rewatch. Um,
yes, everyone's
I
seen that, hopefully, and if you haven't, you should.
yes, I Shaun of the Dead. I don't know if it might have been my introduction to Edgar Wright, and I've since gone on to love many more of his films. I will say, as much as I still enjoy this film and has a special place in my heart, I do think I've reached the point where I don't really need to see it that many more times.
Mhm.
I think it still is very charming and enjoyable in its own way, but I don't have like a huge desire to rewatch it very much after this last visit with it.
Yeah, I feel
It's
like I'm in
probably
the
the
same
third.
boat with it.
Yeah.
I think I've seen it 4 or 5 times maybe, and I feel like I could revisit Hot Fuzz, but I don't
Mm,
think I can go to Shaun of the Dead for a while, just
yeah.
because it's been, you just know that movie beat from beat, and now you're like, kind of like, I don't remember, I know all these jokes, they're not gonna land
Hmm.
and stuff like that, but it's just a great film for just a horror comedy, one of the best.
Yes, exactly. And that's how I feel with his
Mm-hmm.
Cornetto trilogy. I need to revisit Hot Fuzz, and I did. I'm actually one of those people that does like The World's End quite a
I like
bit.
it too.
Yeah, I know it's considered the lesser of the three, but
Yeah, it's definitely charming in its own.
yeah. What was your
Uh,
next one?
My next one was in preparation for a movie we saw on October 3rd. If you know what movie that is, this is Saw 1.
Oh,
So I borrowed a
da-na-na.
4K Blu ray from Diligent Picks and I watched it. Um, and it really does not play like a horror movie. It plays like one of those dark, like inspired by horror, like thrillers from like the 80s and 90s. It really much leans heavily into that, and some of the acting's like super campy at points, like cheesy, like they kind of are over exaggerating, and the way they deliver just kind of feels like very like almost comedic, like on its back end, but it's like just so fun. There's like barely any gore in it, so honestly I'd recommend this movie to anyone. It's like if you like horror, it's fun there, but if you like thrillers, it's great there. Great mystery. A lot of people you're gonna be like, oh, it's that person, especially nowadays.
Yeah,
You got like Danny Glover. I forget the two
couple
main
lost
guys.
actors.
Yeah, a couple lost actors. Ben's actor. What's his name? Who's now in Mission Impossible? Is one of the guys in the Chained Up version.
Oh,
We're gonna be looking up the. Oh wait, I have it pulled
but
up right
yeah,
here.
Carrie Elways. You got Lee
Yeah,
Winnell.
Carrie Elways. Lee Whalen. Carrie Elways is who I was talking about. He's in the new Mission Impossible.
Yeah, and Lee
Yeah,
Winnell, who's now gone on to become a
yeah, Lee Winnell,
big
obviously
director.
Danny Glover, and but yeah, Ken Leung, the other one
Yes.
that was in Lost. But yeah, just a great film. Honestly, I feel like people that haven't seen it think it's just like crazy violent because of the later issues in the series, but it's not. It's just like a really well done, well written thriller, and that's like perfectly what it is. And I really loved that film. It was really great. I give it a good rating.
Yeah. Saw definitely has a special place in my heart. It's still my favorite of the franchise, and I'll never forget seeing it at 13 in theaters with my mom and just being like just blown away by that twist. And if you don't know it, that's really the biggest reason to see the film in and of
Mm,
itself is it has one of the best twists in cinema for someone who has never seen it. Once you've seen the film, the twist, the film does lose a little bit of impact when you know
yeah,
the
it's like
final.
Chameleon's best, you know.
Right. And but yeah, Saw it does have that reputation of just being super super gory, but that first one is actually very understated in that realm. It's they cut away from so much because they didn't have the
Mm-hmm.
budget for it. So if
Exactly.
it's a good just I just almost call it just a thriller. It really is like
Yeah.
not the scariest or goriest of horror, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we will go back to Saw because of course we all know what came out after that. But the film that I saw right after Shaun of the Dead was Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Horror comedy
Yes.
vibes. More horror
I watched
comedy.
that in June this year, so we both have seen it
Nice.
recently.
Nice. I still absolutely love that film.
Yes.
I don't know what it is about it, but it just it just works on such a great level. It has that cabin in the woods style to me that like everything about the film and what they're trying to achieve just works. The characters are the two leads are just so fun and endearing and charming, and then you have the college kids and their over the top acting and moments and the way and the storyline of who like neither one of them understand what each other is doing, and they keep getting killed off in crazy ways. It's just one of the most fun movies you could ever watch.
Yeah.
Really.
Just peak horror comedy.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
essentially what it is. One
definitely
of the best.
Definitely in the top 5, I would say, horror comedies.
Yeah, definitely top 10 easy, top 5 probably.
Yeah.
Now
but I can guess your next movie.
It's, you guessed it, Friday that no. Saw X. Saw X. So the only 2 Saws you need to ever see. I'm joking, but there's some good ones in there. Saw X. We both saw this, so we can kind of do this together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Saw X was great. A fun return to kind of like the styling of the earlier films, but pretty gruesome, very gruesome. But not like overtly in how some of the other ones where you're just like someone's being like just demolished and you're like, okay, well there's like some more reasoning behind it. The first third of it really does play like a drama, which is kind of fun. And you're following around Jigsaw's character. But yeah, I thought that story held up enough for what it needed to do. And that the characters were likable. The characters were believable. There's some okay acting. Some of the actors weren't that great, but it was like good enough for what you wanted. And just the film as a whole was like pretty good. One of the better Saw films.
100%. Yeah, I'd say it's my second favorite behind the original. Seeing Tobin Bell in a prominent presence in a Saw film was really, I think, a long time overdue. Especially since he was really only in acting in like 3 or 4 of the movies, like really present, I should say. And just a lot of fun. Like the way
he very much carries the film.
Yeah, like, and I think it does feel like a good callback to the early Saws, and I am curious if they continue to take it in this direction. I would certainly want to see more of these like mini in between saga moments of like what was happening during this with him back.
because he's back, and then you have some of the other characters that are back, and you're like, oh, it's pretty awesome. One of my favorite scenes in it was the house scene where they go to the house with all the windows. Yeah, that scene was just like great, and also comedic at points. It was just great. There's just some great like shot scenes, done scenes. It was fun. If you like gore and horror.
Honestly the biggest surprise of the year for me so far, because I did not expect it to be good at all.
Yeah, especially after the last 2.
Yeah, I just was like, why do we have a 10 Saw movie? That's basically all I could think of. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, it's good?
Yeah.
So, big surprise. I ended up watching, after that, I watched Creepshow from 1982, one of the probably more highly remembered, regarded horror anthologies, comedy. I'd say I enjoyed it. It was definitely interesting trying to like figure out the time of like an 80s horror anthology comedy. Like it's very weird. It's like there's a lot of really strange bits because I'm used to anthologies like VHS or like just much more modern anthology. But then what's really charming about it is all the people that are in the movie. There's so many famous random cameos and like roles, like Stephen King having his own bit in it just made the movie for me. So that's a fun one.
Yeah, I've seen parts of it. I think I've seen some pieces, but I don't think I've actually watched the whole thing. So that's still one I need to get around to.
Yeah.
So it's me.
Yeah, we might be coming across our first movie night.
Close, but not for me. That night after Saw X, watched Murder, Death, Koreatown. Another weird movie nobody's seen. So Murder, Death, Koreatown background was a movie released by Anonymous, directed by Anonymous. No one knows who they are. Some random person. put this on the internet. I think there might know who it is, but from all the stuff I've looked, you could only watch it or get it originally from their website. You could buy it from them, and then they had it on Amazon Prime for a little bit. But then I got taken down because they couldn't verify if some of the people in the movie were actually actors or random people on the street that were just put in the movie. So it's very weird, very bizarre found footage that kind of runs itself around that obsessive, like kind of like QAnon style. Like there's something more going on here, kind of like that conspiracy thing, because it's just a guy who thinks neighbor gets killed and he's like, oh, this is weird, let me film it. And then he gets super into it, like there's got to be something more to this person wouldn't do this. And he gets like all these parasocial relationships with these people he's never met and that are dead now. And then it kind of just goes down this rabbit hole of craziness, and it's very believable because like there's people that you genuinely think are random people on the street that end up actually being like actors because they have very like fantastical things happen to them later, or they do fantastical things. And it's very much a film that is very slow paced for the first half, and you're like, I don't know what's going on, I might turn this off. And then it just hits. You're like, oh, this is actually kind of engrossing, like a weird like thriller mystery. Not as much of a horror, but it does get really creepy and kind of has like a lower budget Lake Mungo vibe at points. I'm not going to say it as good as Lake Mungo. I really did enjoy this film, though. I was super surprised by it going in with no expectations about a movie made by someone that doesn't even want to put their name on it. So it was just really good and really crazy. If you can find it and watch it, I know I had to go sailing the seven seas to watch it. It was great. But yeah, if you can and find a way, I would recommend this. It's a crazy, like LA based 4chan internet movie. It was really weird, but I liked it. It doesn't go into like any like weird things, like even though it's compared it to like political stuff. It's just kind of like that obsessive ideologies of that. But in that film, it's like very interesting how they use kind of like that obsessive compulsion of a character as a narrative for it, which I really liked. And it was very, very entertaining.
That sounds really interesting. Yeah, I don't think we actually ended up talking about that one, or if we did,
Yeah,
it was very
yeah.
brief.
I went home and I turned it on. I was like, I might fall asleep, and then I was like, what is going on? And then I was like, great. I'm kind of actually creeped out. I might sleep with the lights on.
Well, speaking of another, probably not nearly as weird movie, but another movie that Lucas did make me watch.
I know what this is.
Ravenous.
Ravenous. Yeah, so Ravenous is a movie. This is actually one away from mine. I watched a movie before this, but Ravenous I love. There's a great video essay by a guy called Attila Shun, I think, on YouTube, and he did a video that's like 20 minutes long video essay about it. If you want to watch that, he has a non-spoiler part to like get into that. And then he does an hour-long rant because he loves this movie. It's essentially a historically set movie set during the Mexican-American War. Guy Pearce's character survives and gets shunned to an outpost that's like at the Donner Pass. And it has this crazy good cast. It was directed by this woman who pretty much was the biggest movie she ever directed. For some reason, they gave her like $6 million to make this movie in like the 90s, which was kind of unheard of for a not huge female director at the time. Barely even many female directors back then. So, but yeah, great cast. Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle, David Arquette, Jeremy Davies, Jeffrey, he shall not be named Jones, and some other people. Oh, Neil McDonough, there you go. But yeah, now for your review of it.
Oh, well, yeah, it was definitely like a movie I was kind of struggling with at first to figure out like what was going on, but I did enjoy what I was seeing, and I do agree. I really like the cast. I like some of the weird instances of humor like that kind of show up near the end, especially.
It's very much a dark humor film. It's a horror with humor. I know the biggest struggle that you and Aaron, our other friend that watched the movies, has had was the score, who's done by the Blur 2 and Gorillaz lead guy. It is a weird score, but it's a film that I think grows on you the more you watch it, which is always hard to get people to do for a film they're uneasy about after watching it the first time. But I've watched it, I think, 3 times now. Me and my friend Seamus love it. It's just a really fun movie. And the more you watch it, the more you kind of get into that what's it called? The dialogue. You just like listen to the dialogue more, and there's so many great lines that you kind of like forget your first time you watch, and then you watch it again, you're like, oh, this is awesome, actually.
Yeah, I could see that. I definitely took that away with this movie in terms of thinking like this is probably gonna be better if I get around to seeing it again. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in a way, it kind of reminds me in that regard. I don't know if this is the best comparison, but I'm gonna say it anyway. It kind of reminds me of a film sort of like Deliverance, where like Deliverance itself is just an experience of the film, but
Mm-hmm.
once you know what happens, once you see it coming, there's so much you can catch on rewatch that you actually
Yeah.
want like to experience again versus like some stuff you don't. But yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's just I'm just trying to think of a movie where like it's so polarizing the first time you see it, but then you're like over time you're like, wow, this is actually really good. Like yeah, that's the
Yeah.
first. That's really the only
Um.
other film that came to mind in that regard.
Yeah. Um. We have another movie that we watched that night, but I got to go back one day to
Yes,
very
going
quickly talk
back.
about one of the worst Friday of the 13th movies. Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. It's not good. There's some funny
Ooh.
moments. Enchiladas, if you've seen it, great. Um, there's like a good kill at the beginning. It's just not a good movie. Like half of the Friday the 13th, but unlike half of the Friday the 13th that are bad, it isn't that redeemable as a fun movie either. It's just not that
Oh,
good. Only
ooh.
watch it if you really want to watch all the Friday the 13th in order, which is what I was doing. And so yeah, that's pretty much my review of it. There's like some cool kills. There's very like trying to be overly dramatic comedic characters that play like a trope that are just bad. They're just annoying and then they die. Yeah, that's a lot of the movie. But yeah, this one they're in like a mental halfway house for children who are like disruptive or have mental problems. And yeah, that's kind of the setting. And then Jason shows up and
Hmm.
you're like, okay. But yeah, it wasn't good.
That's,
Pretty much everyone's review of that movie.
that's definitely one of the ones I've heard the very least amount about. So,
Yeah,
but,
it's just not good. Yeah, Friday the 13th Part 5. But you kind of, it doesn't, you don't have to watch it for the like mid level trilogy that they have, which was 4, 5, 6. But yeah,
mm.
not good. Your turn. I think I know what it is.
Our turn, yes. Phantasm 2, back to another horror franchise, but with significantly better films as a whole, maybe. Um,
Yes.
perhaps we
About as
haven't
many
seen them
good
all.
films and about half. Yeah, we haven't seen 3, 4, and 5, so.
But yes, we watched Phantasm 2 for the first time, and I think we both agreed it
Mm.
was just as good, if not maybe even somewhat better in some ways than the first. Um, I
Yeah, the first
think,
we watched in September.
yeah, and we really enjoyed it. It's a movie we quote all the time now. Boy. So
Boah.
it's just one of those it's one of those movies that you can't help but think about because there's so much like just crazy stuff you see on screen that stands out that you just things you'll never forget in a movie. And
Yeah.
it's just they're just so much fun. Like that's really what it
Yeah.
comes down to is they are very fun horror films.
Very fun, and they really did actually play heavily into their comedic bits in the second one. You're like, oh, I want this to happen. It kind of just does happen. You're like, oh, this is great, and it was well done. Still had the horror mystique, but it was super funny.
Yeah.
Um, so
What
what did
was
I
next
watch
on
after
your list?
Phantasm 2? I watched the third Saturday in October Part 5, and I watched the third Saturday in the October Part 1, but I watched that way later. Because essentially what this is, it was two movies, and the director released them. Like, one was the far-long sequel along, like Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, and then one of them was supposed to be like a Friday the 13th. And that's essentially how he had them made. And he said, watch Part 5 and then watch Part 1 because it'd be funny. And so that's what I did. Part 5 is a bad horror movie with some fun stuff, but because it's kind of like paying homage and doing a parody of some things, you're like, oh yeah, this is fun at points. And that's pretty much what it was. It was like just a fun, cute horror movie trying to emulate like late sequels of Legacies set in like, it had probably been released in like the late 80s, early 90s. And it was fun. It definitely emulates that style well and does it. This one definitely felt like it had less budget than the first one, which kind of fits the part. But yeah, I had fun with it. Only really watch it if you watch the other one. It wouldn't do well as a standalone film. But yeah.
Mm. Well, the next film on my list sort of begins my streak of movies that I just took a chance on. Maybe I've been wanting to
Mm-hmm.
see, but I had not seen, and I watched a few of these on my own or with friends um, outside of our group. But I watched Peeping Tom, which is a film I watched with my girlfriend, and
Ooh la
we.
la.
I don't know if I would recommend it as a date night film,
Date
but
night.
it is about a serial killer who goes around photographing people as he and kills them as he's doing it, recording him. So, but anyway, it's a very well made film. It's really cool. There's so many influences that other films, a more recent film in mind, Last Night in Soho, took a lot of influences from it, particularly and it's almost like giallo or like there's certain elements to it that are just really cool. The story feels kind of almost like a Hitchcock film combined with like um, just like a really seedy noir horror in a way.
Mhm.
There's some really interesting elements, and it's one of those films that I really want to see again and introduce to friends. So those are the ones I usually get the most excited about. And there is going to be a new restoration of it coming out. I think either later this year or the beginning of next year that I'm very excited about.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. I remember you said that you definitely recommended it for me after we were watching another movie as well. So I'm
Yes.
definitely going to eventually watch it when that remaster comes out.
Yeah. Wait.
Um, so the next I watched a movie that'll probably be in our thumbnail. When Evil Lurks. The surprise hit of horror from October. Even more surprising
Mm.
than Saw because it's a Argentinian film that got a limited release, but it was in some theaters. By Demian Rugna. He did Terrified, which has a really creepy cover. I remember seeing that all the time at my video store. When Evil Lurks, I think it's good. It has some really big problems with it, in my opinion, narrative-wise, that it would be uncomfortable for people. You can look up those. In violence, and then as well as just storytelling, there's a plot point that did not need to be in there, and it was very bad and kind of like cringing and like, oh, I don't like this, what it's insinuating kind of
Mm.
thing. But I just liked the gore. It was pretty well, and then the way that he frames horror in his films as it's just like part of the universe, like this is just a matter of fact, this is how it is great. The ending kind of lets you down and stuff, but if you like violent, no holds bar horror films, this is very much up that alley. I like it more than like Martyrs and like similar things that people would compare to that. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. Had fun with it. I don't know if I'd rewatch it anytime soon, just because of the things I said before. But I definitely would say watch it if you go in knowing those things that they use and you're okay with it. Because I kind of knew before, and I watched it. I was like, okay, yeah, I see it, and I didn't like it, but it's fine. But yeah.
Yeah. That was one that I almost saw with you and I wimped
Mhm.
out. No. I just remember
Yes,
I
I
wasn't
saw it
able
with
to go.
legendary area movie legend Darren.
Yeah, shout out to Darren.
Shout out to
Spe-
Darren.
Speaking of legendary friends, I saw my next film, which is not a horror film in any way, shape, or form. I mean, maybe to like stockbrokers, but I watched Dumb Money with Brennan. Shout out to
Brennan.
Brennan. We had a good
Man who
time with
loves
that
his
one.
house.
Yes, he does. And we watched that film together at in the theater, which was a really good time. I really enjoyed it. I knew about what was going on at the time, but I didn't partake in any of it, and so it was interesting to learn some of the history and the events. And I just really like Paul Dano. Like he was so good in the film, and it made the film just better for me just seeing him on screen doing his thing. What can I say?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
That was one I also was going to come to, and then I was like, you know what? I'm busy. um,
Payback.
yeah, exactly. So the day after, when Evil Lurks, I saw No One Will Save You, which was kind of popular in discussions of horror movies on the internet at the time, but has been everybody's like, oh, it's okay, because that's kind of what it was. I was like, it's going for that kind of like to talk about a movie that's topical, Silent Night, where nobody talks. Kind of going for that, and it was a horror movie. It had a good cast. The lead is Caitlin Dever from like Booksmart, and so she was fun. But the monsters were really cool. The CGI was pretty good, but the story is just kind of not that compelling, and you're kind of like sitting around waiting for a reveal that you know what it kind of is. And then you're just kind of like, what are they going to do with this? And then they kind of do something with it. And you're like, okay, that's kind of interesting, but nothing narratively that is unlike something I've seen before. And so
Sure.
it was fine. It was good for like a exactly 90 minutes, I think, or around there movie. If you just want to put on a horror movie in the background and maybe look at it while doing something else, or just sit there and relax and like talk with someone, it's a good movie for that.
One of those films where like it goes a certain way and makes you say, well, that was a choice.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, I kind of expected that. Okay, that's kind of weird. Anyway, that's not too bad. Yeah, and that's what that was.
Well, I had my first, I would say, semi-disappointing film of the month, which was a film that I really knew nothing about, but just it looked like it might have been something that I would really like, called Seconds. It's a 1966 film. Um, there are certain aspects of the film that are really well done. The cinematography, you would drool over the cinematography. It's like really cool stuff for that time,
Okay.
especially. Um, but something about the film itself felt a little too long, a little too uh, like the pacing was off, and I think beyond the opening like concept of what it was going for, it just kind of didn't really go anywhere for me. And there's a lot of like weird like patriarchy, like overt themes, things that just didn't mesh well for me.
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I would almost still recommend it for you. I don't think I
Okay.
could see. I don't think because I'm curious what you think of it. I
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
wouldn't see it again though.
Oh, last time you said I would be curious about what I think. I hated the movie.
What's that?
You know what movie you and Aaron
Oh,
forced me to watch for a movie night. That will be in the November edition of this.
yep.
But yeah. I'd be interested. Definitely sounded. I like the cover. I've seen the cover multiple times, so I've always been like
Yeah.
keen to buy that. But yeah. Um, Now I'm getting into a movie night that we watched.
Ooh.
Christine,
Oh, you're see now I'm the one
1983.
now.
No,
Now you're skipping ahead for me. I've got two more
yeah,
before that.
yeah. Oh yeah. I so since then I didn't watch any movies like for like 3 days because I think I went on a trip. That's why. So yeah, but yeah, Christine, really good. I've seen it before, but I didn't really remember it that much because it was like 2017 and I was like in
Mm.
a hotel. So it was nice to watch it like an actual setting. And I really liked it. It's fun. I wish it was more gory, but you get the
Mm.
sense of scale, and the special effects is just insane. It's so
Yeah.
good. The characters are like almost they're like overacting like the bad guy, but he's like supposed to do that because he's kind of like being like possessed essentially, and it's great. The way he does it is great, and
Yeah.
it fits the film so well. It's another one of like the weirdly we've watched 3 movies with Harry Dean Stanton, and that's one of them recently. And yeah, he was great in it. The main people were great in it. And just like a really good cast, really fun film. If you like old cars, creepiness. Not really as scary nowadays. It's just like a great classic horror film.
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. I 100% agree. It's a movie that I'd want to see for a long time, and
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't know like how like the exact route it was gonna go, but all I could picture in my head was like stuff from like Rebel Without a Cause and like Carrie, just car
Yeah.
scenes from those movies, and it
Mm-hmm.
kind of had some of that, but it was much more grounded in a way that I liked, and I
Yeah. The
100%
gas
agree.
station gas station attack is one of the best like car violence scenes
And
I've
just
seen.
even
That thing was gigantic.
in the special effects when the car is like fixing itself,
Mm-hmm.
those things, yeah. And the soundtrack, it's just a really good,
Yeah.
There's a lot of good vibes all around for people.
Yeah, it's a film that has a certain type of aura and aesthetic to it
Mhm.
that just like draws you in, and you're just like, this is just sucking me in, and I'm just gonna sit here and enjoy it, and that's what it was.
Yeah. Speaking of one of those, my next one of the top ones that I watched this month, and an actual rewatch for me. Hadn't seen it since I saw it in theaters, but I watched an American Werewolf in London. I saw it initially in 2016. This is my first rewatch. I got the 4K, and oh man, that's another like top 5, top 10 horror comedy. That's another one with insane special effects, insane
Yeah.
makeup. One of the probably the best transformation scene of any werewolf or any kind of shape, transformation that scene.
Maybe number 2 to Nirvana the Band, the Show's parody of it, which we watched, I think, 2 days after that.
Yeah, true. But yeah, it's such a brisk, like, just really fun watch. This time I watched it by myself, and I was like, man, I should have waited to watch this with some friends.
Yeah.
So, but it's yeah, I don't really want to say too much about it, especially for those who haven't seen it, because I know it's an early 80s movie. Some people still probably haven't seen it. It's a great film
that deserves a blind watch.
Yeah.
Just trust people.
Yeah.
So my next, on that same night, that I'm just going to touch on the pseudonym.
Yeah,
we watched Phantasm 1.
Phantasm.
Again, because we hit Phantasm 1, the first one, because they wanted to show their friend Clay it. And so we watched that. Great film. We kind of pretty much already talked on how much we love Phantasm.
We kind of forced Clay to watch it because we were in such a mood to watch it. And I'm not sure if that worked out for him, but it worked out for us.
Yeah, I voted for The Void.
That's true.
I wasn't part of that. But yeah, so the next actual film I watched that we haven't really talked about was Dr. Sleep. I hadn't seen it. I really liked it. Flanagan, I love Mike Flanagan, and this is another example that he does it well. He understands how to direct a Stephen King film in the way that Stephen King writes his. Not necessarily similar to like how Kubrick was able to take Stephen King's work and do his own thing with it. Mike Flanagan's able to take Stephen King's work and translate it.
I agree.
And I really like that. His stuff, Mike Flanagan does it great. This film's great. Very violent at points. No holds barred as well. You don't know who's gonna live. You don't know who's gonna die. It's very just like goes at you. Set pieces. If you've seen, I mean, I know some people that likes The Shining. They're like didn't like this movie. I feel like if you're like one of those horror purists, you might not like this, but I think it's great. It's not really crapping on the original. It's an actual sequel to it because it was written as a sequel to it that's down the road, which this is down the road. And I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was a fun set piece. All these cool stories, all this kind of like interesting story lines that he was going with the original story is pretty interesting. I liked it.
Yeah, even though it has the DNA of The Shining, it feels like its own movie for me.
Exactly.
And it feels like a self-contained film. It doesn't feel like a direct continuation. Despite being a sequel set a certain amount of time later, it doesn't feel like you're watching this like, exact copy of The Shining. It feels very much like its own movie, and I like that a lot. Obviously, the music's there, the characters are there, and a lot of the themes. But there's so much that is like beyond the realm of The Shining itself, like outside of that vibe.
It doesn't feel like a normal like legacy sequel to, or like, because it isn't. It has the same source material per se, that it's written by the same person, but it just does it in a way that's great and definitely honors the original film still, which I really liked.
And quick shout out to Mike Flanagan. Somebody release Hush on Blu-ray. God damn it.
Mike Flanagan, we love you. Come on the podcast.
Yes.
He's our only viewer, actually. Did you not know that?
Who knows?
Okay. Your turn, sir.
Well, this next film was probably the one film I may like regret having picked. um, I liked it in some respects, but it was Werewolf by Night. So as you
Oh,
can see, I was like going at peak werewolf cinema to not so peak. But this was like very much its own thing. I really like the fact that Michael Giacchino directed it, and I think direction wise it was cool. But everything else I couldn't really get into. I
yeah.
didn't it just wasn't it didn't have anything to grab onto for me. I didn't really understand what was happening so much, and it just quickly became a movie that I was like, okay, I guess I better just finish it now.
Yeah, it's fine for what it is. I would say I liked it, but I don't know if I'd ever rewatch it.
I'm kind of curious to see it in color just because, but yeah, and maybe because it felt very weird to make that a black and white film when it didn't really like. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like
Yeah,
they were trying to make it like feel like that time
artsy.
period.
Yeah, they're very much trying to go for a thing, and it didn't really nail it, but it was fine enough.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't know. I'm probably being an overly of an hater of it,
yeah,
but
I thought it was just fine, but yeah, I don't know if I'd ever watch it again.
yeah,
Not a huge fan of the current Marvel state, as we know.
yes.
Um, Going on, I watched something crazy. I
Ooh,
watched The Boxer's Omen. This is a Shaw
oh,
Brother film. It is on YouTube where I watched it, and it has weird cropping when there's nudity, but it's still a good upload because they like ripped it from the Blu-ray. Just fuck, it's just bat crappy, man. It just goes crazy. You're like, okay, this is a movie about a boxer, and then his brother gets like sucker punched and paralyzed, and then you're like, where's this going? Then he goes to like South Asia, and then he finds out he's like the twin like spirit brother of an encompassed Buddhist who he must take the place of, but he's also was encompassed in this thing, essentially put to sleep forever because there's this witch doctor after him. And now the new guy has to fight the witch doctor, which is the boxer guy. And it's just crazy. It has the most insane practical effects. It's all like gross practical effects, but like not like gross to the point where you're like, oh, I don't want to watch this. It's just like, why is there so much pus? This is like a guy like summoning this bat and then like exploding it and then taking the chunks and putting it in a thing that creates a giant monster that then goes to try to fight. But it has all this weird martial arts too. It's all over. It's just doing all this crazy things, and it still has this grounded boxer story going with it. And it's like, I don't want to give away too much. It's just crazy. If you want a crazy ass movie, this is a great film for that. It's just insane. I don't really know how to explain it. It's just one of those like really good special effects, just one of those out there stories, and you just have so much fun with it because you just don't know what's going to happen next. Also, shout out, the movie had a really weird phantasm sample where it's the boy scene, and so we had watched it like 2 nights before, and I'm like, yo, this movie I'm watching literally had this. I'm not like going crazy at 1 a.m. at night. And I like sent the clip to them on in our group chat, and they're like, what the fuck? It was great. Yeah, this movie was insane. I would definitely recommend it. It's free on YouTube. Go watch it. It's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your description of it definitely sold me.
Yeah. I definitely want to rewatch it again, and we're getting close to like a time where I'll pick it one night.
Nice. Well, I watched a film that I definitely want to show you guys, and I was like, when I saw it, I was like really like, oh man, I'm gonna pick this our next movie, and then I kind of was like, well, I'll take a little break, but
Yeah.
I saw The Devil,
Oh yeah.
one of the best Korean revenge films. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's hard to say because I haven't seen Old Boy in such a long time,
Yeah, I was
but
gonna say.
but
Shit.
it's but right now until I rewatch Old Boy, it is
Mm-hmm.
probably my favorite.
Yeah.
Um, it's just from top to bottom, it's such a well done, well executed film, and it's so like hard to look away despite a lot of disturbing scenes, and like not only there's a lot of like disturbing violence, but there's just some disturbing content, and
Yeah.
but the film itself is so well done, and it's true. The way I described it in my review was that it's just mesmerizing. And so I hadn't seen it since it came out in 2010, so 13 years. And so I'm just really excited to introduce it to some friends. And I think you may have seen it, but you don't remember it well. And then I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
saw
Aaron
it.
had ever seen it.
I think I saw it right around the same time I first saw um, Old Boy. So I saw Old Boy, I think, in 8th grade, freshman year, and I kind of attached to that one more because I saw it first. But I saw the double I really like as well.
Yeah.
But it's just been so long, like 2016, no, 2013.
Yeah.
I think was when I saw it, so it's been a while. But yeah, definitely we will probably end up watching that soon, next couple
Yeah.
months. For me, well, what could be next, but hyping up our me needing to see movies by a certain director because we're gonna both watch one by a certain director in a couple more. I watched Possessor by Baby Cronenberg. So Brandon Cronenberg, Possessor, has one of my favorite, like, he was kind of just in a bunch of movies I watched around the same time because there's a couple directors that used him a lot. I forget their names, but I know the films were James White and now I'm blanking on it. Anyway, Christopher Abbott. I love
Yeah.
Christopher Abbott. What were they? It's gonna make me mad. Martha, Marcy, Macy, Marlene,
Oh, right.
James White, Piercy. They're all like all those directors are kind of like friends that have worked together, and so they all kind of like used him. And I really liked Christopher Abbott because of that. I watched all those films like around at the same time. And so I bought Possessor on 4K, never watched it. Then I finally did. Another movie, No Holds Bar in What It Decides to Kill, was I think my theme for October, sadly. And I really enjoyed it. I liked it more than Antiviral, even though I love my boy Caleb Landry Jones. He's one of my favorite actors. Caleb Landry Jones fan page is now
Mm-hmm.
our podcast. No, but yeah, I really like this one. I think it had a more thought out script than like Antiviral, which is the only Brandon Cronenberg I had seen before that. Um, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was pretty great, like body horror techno thriller, but not as body horror-y as his dad, which is kind of how I like his stuff. He kind of gets out of that zone where his dad kind of stays in that zone, and I think that helps him more. That's why I've kind of enjoyed Brandon Cronenberg a little bit more as an overall director, but not saying that I've enjoyed his films more than like say a true Cronenberg film.
Got it.
But yeah, I liked Possessor a lot. I thought it was a great story and pretty visceral to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't remember it well enough now, but I do feel like after another film that we watched that we will discuss pretty soon, I am curious to maybe give it another chance.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I watched another classic of the genre, Poltergeist,
Oh
1982.
yeah,
Yeah, I rewatched it for the first time since I was probably a kid. I don't remember. I forgot so much about this movie, and
there's
it
some
is.
scenes that I forget how visceral they are, like
Oh yeah,
violent. Yeah,
it is such a well done, enjoyable watch. I could not believe how much I liked it. I don't know. It just, it's one of Toby Hooper's, few films
mm-hmm.
besides like Texas Chainsaw. Oh, well, okay. Some people would say this is actually Steven Spielberg's movie, but that's a whole
Yeah,
nother topic. Um, yeah, it is just a really fun movie.
yeah.
There's so much to like about it. The special effects are still amazing, despite being dated. There's so much to this movie, especially the fact that there's been a lot that's happened since it came out. Unfortunate things,
Mm-hmm.
and but it's yeah, a movie that I highly recommend. Someone that like, especially if you saw it when you were younger and you don't remember a lot, but it's so much worth seeing as an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I am going to touch on two movies because I forgot that we weren't only doing horror movies when you brought up Dumb Money, and I forgot about that. I watched The Creator earlier that month. I
Mm,
liked it. Very quick review. I like it. Good cinematography. Some of the best visual effects. Just very derivative of sci-fi and like cyberpunk in general, but it's so fun. Like, just if you like that stuff, just put it on and watch it. You'll be like, oh wow, this is fun. I've seen this exact story is very similar before, and some of these characters like motives aren't that great, but it's just so beautiful, and the sense of scale is great. There's this weapon in it that's just insane, and you're just like, oh, this is like Godzilla as like a US, it's like a nuke essentially. They just like drive around like, oh hey, we don't like you, and they just blow shit up. It's like great. Its setting's cool. And I just had fun with it. I saw it in IMAX, so that was very fun. And then the movie that I actually watched on this after Possessor was To Live and Die in LA. Saw it in theaters on the 4K new remaster, which we'll probably be rewatching soon and be able to talk about in a later episode. But my quick touch on it, one of the best chase scenes I've ever seen in a movie. Some great violence for a action film. Like the brutality of like people being shot was like really well done, and it's just one of the best like psycho thrillers from that era, like action thrillers. I mean, I went into it thinking it would be a little bit more horror oriented because it said it was like a serial killer, but it's not really. Willem Dafoe's great in it. The cast is great. Everybody is just so good in the film, and it's really feels like I really liked that film. It was pretty fun. It was just so much fun. It's a ride from the beginning to the end.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
I watched like a true classic after Poltergeist, 1931. Can you guess it? Universal Monsters.
Was that Frankenstein that you watched?
Yep. I rewatched Frankenstein. Such a classic movie. Like, it's just one of those movies that you have to watch every once in a while. You know, you don't have to watch it every year, but it's just it like Bela Lugosi's portrayal of the monster is just so iconic, and he's so good, and the film is so short. Like it's like barely like an hour and 20, if that, an hour and 10 minutes.
It's during that double feature era, so you get like
yeah, exactly. And it's such a good time. Just all of the I'm looking forward to. That was the only one I watched of all the Universal Monsters that I got the new 4K collections. So I'm looking forward to going through them all. But that one was just the one I absolutely had to check out again.
Then we have a movie night that was just you and me. Speaking of Brandon Cronenberg, we have Infinity Pools, a movie we both loved. We had the director uncut version on Steelbook. I bought it many months ago, and I was like, I'm going to wait to watch this. And I'm glad I did to watch it with someone, because this would have been a weird movie to watch by myself, but that you're there with someone that enjoys these characters, enjoys these people in these situations. And it's just crazy how it's set up. And it's like, I'm not going to give any spoilers about this movie because it's one that you need to go and find. If you're okay with super grotesque sexuality and grotesque violence, just weird sex and grotesque violence, it's fun. It's just insane. The story is great. Mia Goth carries it, as she has been in almost every movie she's been in recently. Alexander Skarsgård, I have no will kind of man. He was just so good in this movie. And just overall, I just like fell in love with this film from an aesthetic point, as well as just like a narrative point. It was just a ride to watch. It's so weird, but then it's like so not, and it's just insane. And yeah, it was great.
Yeah, Infinity Pool was definitely a big surprise. I wasn't expecting to like as much as we did, only because I think I had the expectation of Brandon Cronenberg in my mind of, even though it was really weird, there were certain elements of the film that I really did enjoy, and I second everything you said. Some of the aspects that really stood out to me was the camera work, and almost every scene the camera is doing something so different than I'm used to seeing in like most modern films. So I kept getting so distracted by it, but in a good way, even though it kind of took me out of it at times, like keeping it hard to follow. But I was like, okay, I just really like where this is going, and it's just such a wild movie, and I'm looking forward to introducing it to other people.
Yeah. I really like the cinematographer. I just pulled up his name, Karim Hussein. He has done all of Brandon Cronenberg's movies, and then he's done some like kind of weird horror movies over the years. But yeah, he's Brandon Cronenberg's go-to cinematographer, and they definitely have a good relationship, as you can see in how this film was shot.
Nice. Yeah, definitely a good one, and try to go in as blind as you can, I would say.
What's your next one, unless it's the one that we watched that night?
No, I had. Oh, so you skipped ahead 4 of mine.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I only watched 26 movies this month.
So I had before that movie night, I had a double movie night with Aaron. It was
Oh, yeah.
before that movie night, I had 2 solo movies. So my first solo movie was Pet Cemetery, 1989. We went down the Stephen King rabbit hole, you guys.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Pet Cemetery. It's a lot of fun, very made for TV like. I enjoyed aspects of it. It's a film I regret watching alone. I think it would have been
Mm,
better witnessing it for the first time with a group of friends.
yeah.
Um, but it is a movie that I did enjoy, and I could see myself revisiting again. I don't know if have you seen Pet Cemetery?
Oh, I think I watched it in like high school.
Yeah.
I watched it after like watching a Watch Mojo video.
There you
And
go.
it was like on Netflix at the time or something. It was something weird. Yeah, I remember enjoying it. I definitely liked it more than like any of the newer ones. Pet Cemetery
Yeah.
2 has some weird stuff in it that was fun.
Mm.
But yeah, what did I watch? Yeah, so back to that double feature we had. We
Dun, dun,
watched The
dun.
Fog after Infinity Pool. We were on a
Ooh.
Carpenter kick because Dylan
Yes.
hasn't seen a lot of his movies.
Mhm.
And The Fog is not that great compared to his other movies. It has its film alone. It's all right.
Yeah.
There's some bias, I think, from us because it's filmed around here where we live. Shout out West Sonoma County. It's filmed in like Bodega and also in Marin County. So
Yep.
it's kind of cool. But yeah, outside of that, the violence just isn't there compared to like previous films that he's done. The kills aren't that inspired. The fog is cool and the monster design is cool, but the story is not that engrossing because of how the villains kind of move in it. It was a fun like piece to watch, but I don't know if I'd ever revisit it. It was just kind of like, oh, you have this self inflation that you give this film because of his previous works that you've probably seen before, like The Thing and stuff, and then you watch it like, oh, this is kind of him like finding his direction and how he wants to do his horror because it definitely came out before that, and it was fun, but I don't know how much I'd want to revisit it.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel too. I think it has a very strong opening and a strong ending. It just really struggles in the middle, and I
Yeah,
didn't. Yeah, I found myself
yeah,
just getting kind of lost in the film and not really like following it
yeah,
much, and just kind of been like, eh.
yeah. If it didn't have that ambiance and that like that environment that it was set in, it would just be really boring. But it looks
Yeah,
so cool, and all the set pieces are great, and that's kind of the where it goes.
yeah, definitely worth seeing for your
Yeah,
Carpenter quest.
yeah, yeah. It was his second or technically third horror movie after the fall after Halloween. So
All right.
yeah,
Well,
he did Halloween, Someone's Watching Me, and then The Fog. So
okay. Well, I think my next film what may have been either a directorial debut or at least the first one that I had seen from this director, who we haven't seen much of recently, but we will be soon, and that is It Follows.
whoa,
Yeah, I love It Follows. This was a rewatch of the new Second Sight 4K release, which is so good. The sound design in that film and the score just needed that Dolby Atmos boost, and the film itself, it's it was think it was shot digitally perhaps, but it looks really good in 4K. If you've never seen It Follows, I really don't want to spoil the film. It is almost 10 years old at this point, but it is just a really cool film about, a person who sleeps with someone and then all of a sudden she's being followed by something. That's as simple as it goes. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's the
mm-hmm.
simple premise.
Yeah,
And
it's great.
yeah. Yeah. Lucas, that's all the review you needed. It's
Yeah,
great.
it's great. I like every movie David Robert Mitchell has done, and so technically I haven't seen his first film.
I was gonna
He,
say I didn't want to quote it as his first film or his directorial debut because I was like, I'm probably wrong.
yeah, he did a comedy in 2010 that has decent reviews called "The Myth of the American Sleepover." But outside of that, yeah, definitely burst on the scene with It Follows, and then his next movie is really good too, in my opinion. But we
Which
may
I'm looking
watch that
forward
one
to
day.
seeing. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
So my movie after The Fog was another movie night. Oh boy, I'm way ahead of you in a bad way. I watched. So this was a pick by Aaron. Shout out
Yeah.
Aaron. He chose, based on a YouTuber recommendation, Toombad, which is a Indian horror movie. I think it's based on a legend. And it's set in like 1918, around the same time RRR was set. Toombad is awesome. This movie has some of the best shot dark scenes, because they do like the actual dark, but then they do the scenes where they have kind of like that old like slight lighting that like film had like back in the 80s, which looks great. And I just thought it was super cool universe that it kind of sets up and all this. Um, the camera work was great. It was such a very like underrated feeling film. Kind of at the beginning of the third act, it kind of falls apart where they do like the big time jump in it. But I really liked it. The CGI was decent enough for what it was, and the special effects were really good actually. I had a lot of fun with this. I know you had a lot of fun with this.
Yeah.
And Toombad is probably one of my more favorite horror movies of the later 2010s. And it was just a really good movie from that year, 2018, when it came out. But yeah, I insane surprise. Did not expect to watch an Indian horror movie in October, and it was great.
That was definitely a great surprise pick by Aaron that I didn't even like know. It was not.
We didn't know it existed.
Yeah, none of us really were familiar with it at all, and it ended up being a great blind watch. And yeah, I completely agree. It was really. What I liked the most about it was it felt like no other thing I'd ever seen. I couldn't really pinpoint it or compare it to anything in particular.
It felt very original, and its allegories for what it was trying to say, and its message was really great too.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Here's my first movie night prior to these other two that you have already discussed. My previous movie night was with Aaron. We watched The Omen, 1976. Aaron had never seen it. Yeah, he had never seen it before, and that was my second time seeing it. I liked it.
This one's for you.
Yes, the classic line of "Look, Damien, it's all for you." Yeah. That movie is just a trip. There's some really cool scenes, particularly when the priest is being chased down by like some kind of spirit, and he gets like impaled by this giant spear from the top of a building. There's some crazy things that happen in this movie, and a really good special effects, and especially later in the film, there's like a piece of like sliding glass that comes right at a guy's neck, and you see like the head bobble off, and like the way they did it was super cool.
That scene's great.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a classic. What can I say? There's really no other way of putting it. I do think it needs a good old fashioned restoration. It's been too long since that film has seen a nice tune up.
Yeah. I think I have the Blu-ray of it, and it's all right.
Yeah.
So that was yours. Now it is mine. What did I watch after movie night? Or is it? Oh, second half of that movie night.
Yes.
Let's see what the second half of Toombad night was.
See, I'm about to. I have one more, and then I'm gonna skip like 4 because you've already brought them all up.
I know what the second half of that movie night was. It was this bad movie called Men. Yeah, 2022's Men is bad. It is dumb. It is like you write a message on a stick and you beat someone to death with it to let them get the message. That's the movie. I didn't care for how they told it. I just thought it was really annoying after the first 30 minutes, 20 minutes maybe, where it was really cool and setting up this like all this cool like stuff, blah blah blah. And then it's just like, oh yeah, hey, guess what? Men are horrible and they abuse women and they try to take over their bodies, have all this stuff over them. But instead of telling that message creatively, we're just going to have it happen over and over again in different variations, and then just come up with the weirdest symbolism for evil begets evil of men not changing their ways towards women and how they control themselves in societal ways and how they treat women. and we're just gonna evil begets evil by having ourselves give birth to ourselves. And I was like, whatever, I'm spoiling this movie. It sucks. I was so mad. And I was like, this is exactly what I kind of expected this to be, but worse. And I had no fun with it. And I hated it. But it was really good cinematography and setting. The tunnel scene is so dope, and the sound design is incredible. But all technical aspects go to the trash when there's nothing to speak for in the written department.
Yep.
And Alex Garland, you failed me.
Pretty much a movie where you should put it on in the background for like 30 minutes and then you can just turn it off.
Yeah.
I think I really enjoy everything about the beginning and the opening, but then it goes completely off the rails, and yep, I didn't like that.
Yeah. It's such a message that you can tell in such an interesting way. You can do this in a really good way, and it just feels so lazy, or he was trying to do something weird with it, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
And like, I've watched films that have like a similar theme, and I really like them, and this one just didn't do it at all. It just felt so lazy at points.
Well,
like the fucking origin of evil, where she like shows up to her rental house and she sees an apple and she picks it up and bites it. Oh, Adam and Eve! Wow, Alex Garland! Wow, I don't care. You make me mad.
Well, Lucas and I could probably spend a whole episode talking about our disappointment in Men, but
yeah,
I will attempt to speed run the rest of my picks here.
Yeah, I don't know that many either.
The Orphanage, El Orfanato, 2007.
It's good.
It is a good film. Yeah, no, it's a really interesting mystery. Highly recommend that one. I would check it out. It's kind of a Guillermo del Toro vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Now my turn.
Yeah.
The reason I watched Friday the 13th Part 5 is so I could watch Friday the 13th Part 6. Jason Lives. It's I had fun with it. People say it's the best, one of the better Friday the 13th. I think it's really good. It feels like it's shot like a TV movie at points though. The lighting is very like goosebumpy in a not mean way, but like in a like, okay, this doesn't feel like as creepy. It's good. It's like the only Friday the 13th with children in it, which is kind of funny. Actual campers. Because the first 3 Friday the 13th, if you didn't know, take all place in the same weekend. But yeah, this one it's good. It's fun. It has nice night lighting. I like that when they have good night lighting. The intro's freaking sick. With like a lightning rod shocking Jason in the grave. So dope. Watch it if you want to watch one of the better ones, and you don't really need to watch the other ones. But I would recommend watching 4 before, because 4 is another. It's, in my opinion, my favorite Friday the 13th, and it's the one that's in like the same trilogy as this. So yeah, I liked that one. Very good.
Nice. Well, one film was one of the most, if not the most surprising film on my list in terms of how much I liked it. Children of the Corn, 1984. I think this film gets a kind of a bad rap.
Because of the franchise being so bad.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't think this first film is all that good, and I can kind of see like some of their points, but I honestly think it's pretty good. Like, stop being so mean. No,
yeah,
no, I don't know. I'm really looking forward to introducing the people to it. I don't know. It does have some, like I don't know, pacing issues in some instances, but there's so much to like about it, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Speaking of movies from franchises that get a bad rap, Halloween 3 is like the second best Halloween movie. Hot take. Halloween 3 is dope. Just because it has a Halloween name doesn't mean that it makes a movie bad because it doesn't have Michael Myers in it. It is so cool. It's set in Northern California, already a plus. But the coolest parts is just how creepy it is, and like you're getting this mystery. It has a dope ending, and I just gets overhated because people think that they were going to get this one movie and they didn't get it, and then they're sit here watching this creepy, weird mask murder mystery with like this stuff. It feels like a really good creep show episode or like something like that. Like it feels like it's a really good part of an anthology series, which is what it was supposed to be. That's what they tried to do with Halloween, but they didn't. they realized that they're trying to do that after 2 movies, which they should have done it a movie earlier, so people kind of got that expectation. And so I just really like this movie. Its ambiance is great. One of the best scores of Carpenter's career in a horror sense. I'll say one of his best horror scores because his scores are so great. Um, but yeah, it's just so fun. I had so much fun with it. I wasn't expecting anything, and it was so dope. So yeah, watch Halloween 3 as its own movie.
One day I will watch it. I haven't seen it.
I own it now on Vudu.
Ooh. Well, one of my favorite horror films of all time, Carrie, 1976. Rewatched that. Gorgeous 4K restoration. Just so impactful. The build-up of the final scene, the music, the way everything is done. I just adore this film. It's my favorite Stephen King adaptation. It's my favorite Stephen King book. I've only read like 3, maybe. But it's just a great film. It's another film that I want to show everyone that I know. So.
Yeah, I love that film. I had to watch it in college. I rewatched it in college for this assignment, and I wrote a whole thing about how Carrie as a martyr, and Carrie because her mother makes her pray to the martyrdom of Saint Sebastian instead of actually a photo of Christ in the closet, and I use that for like the whole basis of this essay. And I just love this film too. It's great. Watch it if you have not.
Yeah, 100%.
After that, for me, is a movie that you saw as well. Ooh. FNAF Friday. I'm joking. Why did I say Friday?
Hey, I can cheat. So I can cheat and say I watched that.
Freddy's. Yeah, he saw it in November, but you can cheat and say you watched it. So, Five Nights at Freddy's. I would say, though, this doesn't really pertain to him. If you are a fan of it, if you like, it's very much made for the fans, but you might go into it and like it. If you didn't, it's very much like kind of made for kids, and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek at points, but there's so many fun parts. I love Josh Hutcherson. I met Matthew Lillard 2 weeks after he got announced for this and got to talk to him about the role. It just like everything came together for me to love this film. I love Josh Hutcherson in like weird horror movies, like he was in Detention, one of my favorite movies of all time. And this was just fun and great, and it did it in an interesting way. And it chose a different type of version of the source material to do how it was doing, and I just liked it, and I had fun with it. And that's all you want from this movie. I had a good crowd. It was a rowdy crowd, but it was good. They weren't too annoying, and they were just a bunch of fans on opening night, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Five Nights at Freddy's. I can see certain aspects. Like I can see both sides of the argument of why some people really don't like it and some people like it a lot. But I just, for what I wanted out of it, I was really happy with the results. And I think it's just a fun, campy horror film. It doesn't need to be like the scariest movie. I'm over that. I'm 32. I don't need I don't need to be scared shitless, you know. Like it was really just a fun time.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, maybe the most disappointing, perhaps the most disappointing movie experience, especially because this was a group watch and none of us were that big on it. And that was The Night House, which I watched with Aaron, Omar, and Jafe. And we all were kind of meh.
Yeah.
Meh. I had heard so many good things about this film. It was a 2020 film. I put off watching it for 3 years. And, I don't know. I think I just had thought it was going to be something much better, different. It was very serious, and I don't know. It just didn't come together how I wish it would have. So that's all I have to say about that.
I still haven't seen it, and Darren thought it was okay, so I didn't move it up my list, and you didn't like it, and Omar didn't like it, so that's pretty much my garner from it. And then
I liked aspects of it.
Yeah. And then finally, I watched The Third Saturday in October, Part 1. That has a really well done intro. It just feels like you're watching a 70s movie. Then the rest of it happens. And it's like, all right, it's fun. Good kills, fun villain. It's just a stereotypical slasher that's paying homage to the 70s, but it was great. I had fun with it.
Nice. I have 4 more, so I will.
Oh boy, quick fire.
I will breeze through these. I Married a Monster from Outer Space, 1958. Yeah. So this film was a recommendation because it was a film that my cousin, who I met this year, saw in theaters when he was a kid, and it scared him dearly. Left a huge impact. So I was very curious about it. It has some really cool special effects for the time. Very sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely some dated issues about the film, but it was an enjoyable watch nonetheless. Another film I watched with my girlfriend, and we both just had a good time with it.
Nice.
One that you could touch on, actually, all three of these you could probably touch on. Megan! Or Megan.
Megan. It's fine. It's not really a horror movie that much. The unrated version is definitely the way to watch it.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the unrated, definitely check it out. I liked it way more because it felt like that should have been the actual cut of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much liked it just as much as I did in theaters. It's just a fun watch. It's an easy watch. It's a Blumhouse film. It's got that like vein of like a Happy Death Day. It's just a fun movie. Like no more. It's an easy digestible popcorn horror-esque film. And then let's see, another good one that you can definitely touch on. Psycho Gorman, PG for short.
Psycho Gorman.
We did that.
It's great.
Showed that and Megan to Aaron the same movie night. Yeah, Psycho Gorman is just a great film. It's just a great movie. It's extremely low budget, super
Red Letter
fun.
Media is in it.
Oh yeah,
one of the guys.
Okay,
he's the trash can robot.
Oh my god, yeah. So it's just a really fun movie. Really charming characters, charming story, and it goes completely off the rails in its concept, and it is a must-watch horror comedy. Probably my favorite of the 2020s, actually.
You
know, because we haven't really had that many really good horror comedies.
Yeah,
so far.
Comedies in general, probably one of the best comedies.
Yeah, and then last but not least, an all-time classic. It's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. Ha! More of a Halloween movie, of course.
Yeah.
It's my annual watch. My mom and I watched it every single year. I had to watch it again.
It's great.
It's my favorite of the Charlie Brown specials. Yeah. I mean, just the scene of them getting trick-or-treats and Charlie Brown saying, "I got a rock," every time.
Yeah.
It kills me every time.
Yeah.
So, and that is how I spent the last day of October.
Wonderful. Yes.
Well, we went way over our normal time.
We went way over it, but I think for reasons. So if you stayed,
yes,
we're at about almost a feature-length film.
Yes. So that means we'll have a shorter November discussion because we didn't watch as many movies.
I have watched almost as much, but also we did watch some that are pretty easy to talk about.
True that. We can skip Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We are going to try to put out some more episodes for you guys since we took a little break. But
yeah, we'll do a November review that'll also feature some current films that have come out. Yeah. Teaser Thanksgiving. I think that's actually the only one that we both have seen. So
yeah.
Never mind. But yeah.
And we'll talk about
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yes, there's a couple movies we definitely can talk about more in depth too. And as we get closer to the holidays here, more and more big movies coming out, award season picks. There's a lot going on. So stay tuned for some more episodes.
Thank you for tuning in.
Yes. Well, anything else you'd like to say, Lucas, before we wrap this up?
Just look forward to November discussion.
Yeah. Well, look forward to the November discussion, probably in December. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, that'll be coming out soon. Well, it won't be 3 months.
Yeah.
I will put money on that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for watching. This has been another episode of Mile a Minute
Movie Talk.
Booyah.